The most damaged owner-dog relationships on record at veterinary behavioral clinics are not products of neglect. They are not products of abuse. They are products of devoted, consistent, myth-driven care applied daily with complete sincerity over years. That's the part most dog content won't tell you. The 6 myths in this video are not fringe beliefs held by careless owners. They are mainstream assumptions, socially reinforced, algorithmically amplified that the majority of dog owners are operating inside right now. And from your dog's neurological perspective, it doesn't matter whether the source is ignorance or devotion. The behavioral outcome is identical. The relationship doesn't break. It erodes. One misread signal, one myth-driven response at a time, until you and your dog are sharing a physical space while operating in entirely separate behavioral realities. By the time most owners notice, the distance is already structural. Here's what most owners believe: that they have a deep, mutual, emotionally reciprocal bond, built through years of shared experience, daily proximity, and genuine affection. And the evidence feels obvious. The dog follows you from room to room. It greets you at the door. It leans against you on the couch. What behavioral science identifies in those same behaviors is something different. Proximity seeking, food motivation, and greeting responses are survival architecture behaviors. They persist independent of relational quality. You can have a dog that follows you everywhere and trusts you nowhere. Proximity and connection are not the same neurological event. So what does a deteriorating relationship actually look like? It doesn't look like conflict. It looks like behavioral withdrawal. Research from the Anthrozoology Institute documents a consistent pattern in low-trust owner relationships. Dogs reduce voluntary social initiation, increase distance-maintaining behaviors, and shift from attachment-motivated proximity to resource-motivated proximity. The dog doesn't leave. It stays, but for different reasons than you think. That shift is invisible to most owners because the dog is still physically present. The relationship has already partially left. Now, the 6 myths, sequenced by the relational damage they produce. Myth 1. Your dog misbehaves out of spite. Spite requires theory of mind, the capacity to attribute mental states to others and act against them intentionally. Research by Hare and Woods in 2013 found no credible evidence that dogs possess this capacity. What you're reading as retaliation is communication. The behavior is information about an unmet need or an unresolved trigger. When you respond to communication as though it's defiance, you don't address the cause, you just add unpredictability to the interaction. Myth 2. You must be the alpha. Dominance theory as applied to companion dogs was derived from captive wolf studies that researcher David Meck formally retracted in 2008. The model doesn't describe how dogs naturally organize, and applying it to a companion dog doesn't create a clear social hierarchy. It creates chronic social threat. The dog isn't learning at the place, it's learning that its environment is contested. Myth 3. Affection after fear calms your dog down. What it actually does, via classical conditioning, is pair the owner's affection with the fearful state, reinforcing the fear response. You are not comforting the dog out of fear, you are making fear more likely to occur when those conditions repeat. Myth 4. Your dog knows when they've done something wrong. Alexandra Horowitz's 2009 study at Barnard College isolated this precisely. The guilty look, the lowered head, the avoidance, the tucked tail is not guilt. It is an appeasement response to owner behavior. The dog is reading your cues, not recalling its actions. When you respond to appeasement as though it confirms wrongdoing, you're having a consequence-based exchange with a behavior that has nothing to do with the original event. Myth 5. Dogs grow out of behavioral problems. Without intervention, most behavioral problems don't resolve through maturation, they sensitize. The nervous system doesn't spontaneously recalibrate. Avoidance of the trigger or exposure without resolution generally produces stronger reactivity over time, not less. Myth 6. A well-exercised dog is a well-adjusted dog. Physical fatigue and psychological regulation are different biological systems. A dog can be physically exhausted and neurologically dysregulated simultaneously. Exercise addresses arousal, does not address the associative learning history, the stress response architecture, or the communication patterns that produce behavioral problems. There's a specific behavioral transition in mid-managed dogs that most owners miss entirely, the shift from active communication to passive compliance. Dogs in deteriorating relationships don't typically escalate, they simplify, they stop offering behavioral nuance. They stop initiating interaction outside of resource contexts. They produce the minimum behavioral output required to navigate the environment without conflict. Dr. Persub, Susan Friedman's work on learned helplessness thresholds documents the precise point at which an animal stops attempting to influence its environment, because the feedback system's been too inconsistent to make the attempt neurologically worthwhile. This is not a calmer dog. This is a dog that has stopped believing its behavior matters. A trust-built relationship produces a dog that checks in voluntarily during off-leash activity, recovers quickly from corrections, and shows genuine behavioral flexibility across contexts. A habit-built relationship produces a dog that performs expected behaviors in expected contexts, avoids eye contact in ambiguous situations, and shows measurably slower autonomic recovery after social interaction. One dog is oriented toward the owner, the other is oriented around them. The difference is subtle in appearance and total in neurological meaning. The mechanism that converts myth-based management into structural damage is conditioning. Every interaction is a conditioning event. It either builds or erodes your dog's predictive model of you as a safe, legible social figure. Pavlovian associative learning research applied to social bonding shows that repeated pairing of owner presence with unpredictable outcomes gradually conditions the owner's presence itself as a threat-ambiguous stimulus. You become someone the dog must constantly assess, rather than someone the dog can simply be safe with. Here's the sharpest inversion in this entire video. You believe consistent affection teaches your dog it's loved. Your dog's associative learning system records that your emotional state is unpredictable and not reliably linked to environmental safety. You believe correction teaches boundaries. Your dog's nervous system logs you as a source of aversive unpredictability. You believe shared routine builds bond. Your dog's behavioral record shows that routine without signal consistency is not bonding. It is habituation to an unresolved ambiguity. The relationship you believe you have exists primarily in your interpretation of your dog's behavior. For most companion dogs, the owner is not just the primary attachment figure, they are the totality of the social environment. Research by Topol and colleagues show that companion dogs display stronger attachment behaviors toward owners than toward other dogs, meaning owner relational quality has no social buffer. When myth-driven instincts are the primary input, there is no corrective social data available. A dog cannot develop relational resilience when the primary relationship is the primary stressor. The most commonly offered repair advice is, just be consistent. Behavioral science draws a critical distinction here between consistency of frequency and consistency of accuracy. You can consistently apply dominance-based responses, consistently misread appeasement as guilt, and consistently reinforce fear through misplaced affection, and produce a dog experiencing perfectly consistent, myth-based management. Consistency without behavioral accuracy doesn't repair the relationship. It crystallizes the damage into a stable pattern. Applied behavior analysis literature shows that consistent reinforcement of an incorrect signal produces stronger, more resistant maladaptive behavior than inconsistent reinforcement. Consistent wrongness is more damaging than inconsistent wrongness. There's a physiological dimension to this that most dog content ignores entirely. Research by Coppola and colleagues in 2006 established that a trusted owner's presence functions as a cortisol buffer. It physiologically reduces stress hormone output in dogs during aversive events. The inverse is what happens inside myth-managed relationships, when the owner has been conditioned as a threat-ambiguous stimulus. Their presence stops functioning as a buffer and begins functioning as an arousal trigger. The relationship has been biochemically restructured, often without a single dramatic incident. Just repeated, small, myth-driven interactions accumulated over time recorded in the nervous system as data. The downstream effects show up as increased clinginess, sudden reactivity, destructive behavior during owner absence. These are not personality flaws. They are the physiological record of what the relationship has cost a nervous system. Rebuilding requires neurological recalibration, not more training. 4 phases. Phase 1. Myth extraction. Identify which of the 6 myths are structurally active in your daily interactions, not which you intellectually reject, but which your behavioral patterns still reflect. There's usually a gap between what owners believe and what they do. Phase 2. Signal audit. For 7 days, observe your dog's response to your presence in low-stakes contexts. Is there genuine interest, avoidance, neutral tolerance? The data will tell you where the relationship actually is, not where you feel it is. Phase 3. Predictability repair. Rebuild your presence as a safety cue through consistent, low-demand, outcome-reliable interactions. Same signal, same response, every time. The goal's legibility. Your dog should be able to predict you accurately. Phase 4. Communication accuracy. Learn to read what your dog is actually communicating rather than the narrative you've constructed around his behavior. Ethologist Mark Bekoff's work on interspecies communication accuracy frames this as the foundational requirement for genuine cross-species relationship. You do not repair this by loving more. You repair it by becoming neurologically legible again. A relationship between any two nervous systems across any species boundary is not constructed from intention, feeling, or narrative. It is constructed from the accumulated behavioral record of how two organisms have responded to each other over time. The 6 myths persist because they feel relational. They activate your emotional bonding system while systematically undermining your dog's neurological safety architecture. Your dog is not experiencing your love, it is experiencing your behavior. And behavior, unlike love, is measurable, recordable, and, if the damage hasn't gone too far, correctable. Which of the 6 myths has been structurally embedded in your relationship, and how long has it been operating? Comment the myth number. The next video goes deeper into the repair timeline for each category, what changes first, what takes longest, and what the research says about what's actually recoverable. If you want the science that most dog content is too commercially incentivized to give you, subscribe. That's what this channel is for.